Hello, I'm Kim Allen, and today I'm going to be bringing you a webinar called From Disruption to Direction, Strategic Navigation in Transition. This is actually a webinar for some people, for some of my clients who are during this past month are going through a transition of an organizational restructuring, and a lot of people are actually impacted in many ways during a time like this. So I wanted to have a webinar for everyone and actually focus on three sections of that, which is acknowledging and reimagining and rebuilding for yourself during a time of transition. So just want to let everyone know up front that although I am an executive coach, I'm actually not a traditional coach. I'm a leadership architect, which is different because what I do is I work between personal career evolution and transformational organizational purposes. And today I'm going to be really focusing this webinar based on all of my elite executive coaching experience for everyone. And I'm going to be treating this webinar as if I'm speaking directly with you in a one-on-one session to give you some tools as you are transitioning through this change right now. I understand this audience. I know many people that are going to be in this audience, and also want to welcome those who I don't know at this point. I'm going to be moving forward in the way that I typically do for all of my efforts with regard to helping anyone or any organization. And that is for me, and I have this in both of my books that I wrote, Don't Tell Me Why, Show Me How. So for that, what I want to do is initially pause before I begin, because I want to acknowledge to everyone right now that I can imagine how hard this is for everyone. Sometimes people will think, oh, you'll get another job. It'll be great. You'll be fine. But we're not always fine, and we're not always great. And actually, a lot of people don't hear the words, I can imagine how hard this is for you. So for me, what I want to do in order to show you how this can impact you or how this affects you is that I'm going to be showing you and talking to you about change, and specifically what the shift is and what it is not, for clarification for your purposes. So here are my key insights for moving forward through change and transition. And my ultimate advice is going to be different than probably what anyone's ever said to you before. And I'm going to start with this, that always have a place setting set at your table for chaos or sudden change, because it will always visit you at some point in your life. You never know when it's going to visit. And I promise you that this is a learning moment for everyone. Again, whether this is the first time you're going through a transition or a change, or whether it's not. But at the same time, there are always moments that you did not ask for that can wind up being a defining moment for you in your life. So the core takeaway that I'm going to be saying at the beginning, and I will say it also during the end, is this, that your power lies in your choices of whatever it is that happens to you, not necessarily the circumstance. So not everything is in your power, but something is. So start there at the end of the day. So further, you can do something about your choices, because either way, when you look at that, you have to figure out, well, how am I going to be able to do that? How do I actually look at my choices? What do I do next? And progress always begins with small steps and a centered mind at the end of the day, and also steady movement. So clarity grows as you go, and even in the face of uncertainty. So what does transition and change feel like for some people? Well, picture yourself in a rowboat right now, and you're rowing in choppy water in an ocean with blindfolds on. So it's dark, and then you have blindfold on. You don't know where you're going. It is so unsettling because you don't know where your destination is or what to do. So that's actually almost a feeling of helplessness. And it is actually helplessness at the end of the day. So there are three sections I'm going to be talking to everyone about going from disruption to direction. And the first one is acknowledgement. The second one is reimagining. And the third one is rebuilding. So when we look at the first bucket with regard to acknowledging, This is about meeting yourself where you are. It's what you might be feeling. And what you could be saying is that this is what's true for me right now. We don't feel that way, but that is the reality of it. Let me be crystal clear with everyone that this is not your entire life and this is a temporary situation. At the end of the day, you are witnessing this situation. You're in it, but you're also witnessing this. And that's really important for you to understand that. So if you are judging yourself for being in this situation you did not cause, why are you judging yourself? You may have had nothing to do with this at all. So our emotions are really a roller coaster, right? You're at the top of that roller coaster and you have no seatbelt on. Oh my gosh, I hate roller coasters and I always wear a seatbelt. So at the end of the day, your emotions are going to go from grief to anger to disappointment to confusion. You're numb, you're paralyzed, you're reactive, and you're scared. And all those feelings and all those emotions that you're experiencing are so normal. It is not about personal deficiency. And I really want to set the record straight on that. It's not you, it's them, right? At the end of the day, you did not cause this, they caused that. And you're suffering in the aftermath right now. So it's not a personal swipe at you. And when you're looking at what you're feeling, it is not a reflection of your worth, your contribution, or your potential. So it has nothing to do with that. You may feel that, but again, I'm a coach. I'm the one with the 45,000 foot view, and I'm telling you the way it is. All right. So again, the feeling of sudden change. Well, all right, Monday you had a plan, right? You're going through your week, and then the carpet is pulled out under you on a Thursday at the end of the day, and the plan changed. That is emotional whiplash, and that is normal. And that happened to me as well. I was in pharmaceutical sales a long time ago, and I had just worked with my region director who came in to work with me. Things were great, no problem. The next morning, after she flew home, she calls me and she lets me know that I no longer had a job. Neither did she. So it was a shock for everyone. And what happened was, I'll show the visual, that back then with the pharmaceutical companies, right, things were always changing. So when you're purchased by another pharmaceutical company, especially if it was big, right, wherever there's duplication of reps, typically the people in the larger company got to keep the job. And we were all within minutes. We had no job, we had no income. So I speak from experience. I've been through this before. So the internal narrative is really important because you have to remember your brain, this is a fact, your brain will do what you tell it. It feels what you tell it, and it believes what you tell it. So if you're thinking I should have seen this coming, I don't know, that's true. I didn't see it coming. And my region director didn't see it coming. So again, we were all in shock. And everyone else seems to be handling this better than me. Always we go to other people. Okay. Yeah, you cannot do that. We're not like the other people. We don't have the other person's situation. So everyone is different. And we're all coming out of that gate at the gate's opened, but we're moving forward. Some people stay at the gate. Some people are just crawling. Some people are already at the end, right? So we cannot judge each other about how fast we run or how fast we move. And of course, we're grieving what this is happening. We're grieving what this year would have looked like, right? We thought we were going to be finishing strong at the end of the year, and things have changed. So our physical responses, again, it's your nervous system. And I want to be really clear on this too. It's your nervous system responding to your loss, not your capability. So that's a really big difference because your skill set doesn't disappear. Even though you might think it does, it doesn't. They don't take that with them. You take that with you. And also that your position will, and you may find another role, which is important to remember that. If you are tired or you're irritable or you're sleepless every night, or you're physically anxious, again, that is your body responding to that, but it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. This is a temporary situation for you. The internal narrative that you have bouncing back between I'm okay and I'm overwhelmed. Remember, this might be new for you, that you're straddling two emotions in two worlds right now, that again, it's emotional for you and it's mental, and you may have never had to do that before. So this is a new experience on top of not having a job anymore, or on top of you being moved somewhere else within your organization and with a new team. So again, this is a lot to handle. It's a lot to unpack. So the uncertainty is that I found that leaders, right, we're tough and we're strong and we're going to power right through that. And that always doesn't work. at the end of the day. So the emotional acknowledgement brings the clarity and the resilience that you need. So when we're looking at an identity shift, maybe many people feel this identity shift during a transition like that, the space between who you were in your role and who you're going to become next. And again, we can be afraid of that. But it's important to separate the event from the identity. And I'm hoping that you heard that. Separate the event from the identity. A layoff is something that happened. It's not who you are, right? The value, your value didn't disappear just because a role disappeared. And also your skill set, your track record, your resume, your leadership doesn't vanish with the job title. That remains. Rebuilding confidence starts with separating your self-worth from your circumstance, which is really important to keep that in mind. So it's saying this again, this is true for you right now, but you're going to find another job at some point. You're not going, this is, if you're 30 years old, you're not going to be 40 years old saying, oh my gosh, I still haven't found a job. If you're 50 years old, when you're 60 years old, you're not going to be saying, I can't believe I didn't get another job. That pretty much never happens. The recognition, understanding that this is a temporary situation, is the starting point of every transformation, because you can't shift something that you're not willing to see. You can't acknowledge, you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So when you're acknowledging this, it's actually really healthy to do that, to acknowledge if you're noticing that you're more tired or you're more reactive or you're more distracted and you're feeling like you're in a free fall. So consider this, or if you're in between identities, but consider this. First of all, we're born with two fears. It's innate and being human. And the second one is loud noises. And the first one is the fear of falling. So if you feel like you're in a free fall, that's the biggest, that's one of the biggest fears that we have. So you're actually in the hallway right now between identities. It's uncomfortable, but it's also where reinvention lives. Let me ask this question. Are you saying things to yourself like, I'm tired, I'm scared, I'm disappointed, or I didn't expect to be here? Yep. That's what we all go through when that happens. Perfectly normal. And the reality is this is the emotional truth. And if you say what it is, it makes it real, not worse. So if you're cowering and you're afraid to put your stake in the ground and identify your fear, that is not healthy for you. Imagine that you and I are in a room where no one can hear us talking. It's confidential. And if I were to ask you right now, what is your biggest fear through this transition, regardless of what your transition is? If I were to ask you, what is your biggest fear, what would you say? Can you name that right now? Because that's really important for you to know that. What would you tell me? And the reason why it's important to name your fear is because the boogeyman is not real. I hate to break that to you, but if you can name what you're afraid of, that's half the battle right there. And also I want to state that some people have a fear of fear. I was one of them, right? This tough girl, I'm talented. I know what I'm doing. I'm established. I've been successful, right? But I had a fear of fear because you know what? Who likes that? No one. No one ever said, I love fear. Bring it. Yeah. It's really hard, right? It's really hard to state what your fear is and to face it. But we can do that. At the end of the day, we are all capable. And if I were working with you, I promise you, we would be talking about that and we would be moving past that. So again, it's a good thing. Well, the reality is that your role ended. Your life did not end at the end of the day. So if you're on that comfort train, with the velvet seats behind you and you're just chugging along, and all of a sudden you're moved to a different car and you're going down a different track right now. Okay. It's unfair. It's unfair. Will you survive that? Yeah. It's unfair though. So are you giving yourself permission to pause? That's really important. So right now, did you give yourself permission to not have a plan today or to not have a plan tomorrow? And you're like, I must keep moving forward. I must keep on track. I cannot get off that treadmill. Well, you know what? At the end of the day, if you're moving at breakneck speed in order to try to get there and you're not caring for yourself, that's the wrong way of doing it. You're doing it the wrong way. So sometimes slowing down in order to move faster actually works so much better for us at the end. And you might want to try that. So what stops progress before it starts? Well, there's a lot. I mean, it could be fatigue. It could be withdrawal. It could be resistance. We're angry. We're frustrated. And these are normal. Remember, we talked about that. They're not personal failings for you. Or when you start thinking about like, how could this be happening to me? How again, we're thinking in terms of should, right? And that's what keeps us stuck at the end of the day, that this can't be happening to me. And I didn't ask this to deal with this. And other people should fix this. Yeah, I was in that for a long time. And everything is going wrong. I should just give up. How could this happen to me? You know what? That's a victim lens at the end of the day. And it keeps you rooted in the past instead of moving forward. So I'm asking you to please take your rearview mirrors and turn them in, because when you do that, your former life and your career at this organization or this transition that you're going through right now, it's not what should be reflected in back of you. You should not be looking back. That's not going to do anything. It's not going to change anything. That is wasted effort. So again, waiting for things to happen on their own, that's not anything. That's not a strategy for you, or hoping that someone else is going to whoosh in and save your situation. Hey, if you find someone that's willing to do that, have them call me. All right. Because I'm going to put them in business of being that person to go in, right, and save everyone, because that person doesn't exist at the end of the day. Or things, you expect things to go badly. You know what? Remember, your brain remembers what you tell it. If you expect things to go badly, they will. Do you want to be that person? I don't think you do. And when you expect negative outcomes at the end of the day, the only thing that you're going to notice is the evidence that supports that. So remember, when you tell your brain, whatever you tell your brain, it believes you, right? And that's a fact. So the second part of this is to reimagine. So when we reimagine, we're actually reframing. And reframing, it's not about denying the hardship. It's about expanding your possibilities. So that, my friends, that right there is how you go from transition into transformation. It's not denying the hardship. It's about expanding your possibilities. So that perspective, again, that's that move that moves everything for you at the end. And it's not my fault. It's not your fault, but it's still your move. Someone really important to me said once, it's not your fault. How do they say it? But it's still your problem. Oh my gosh, I fought them tooth and nail on that, because I didn't like that, right? I'm not even telling me that's still my problem, but you know what? In the end, they were right. And moving from it's not my fault, but it's still my move. And the reason why that's important is because you know what? You still have choices at the end. So your choices, again, is panic. You're going to panic. Yeah, that's not a strategy. Okay. Are you fearful? Not a strategy. Are you angry? Not a strategy. A plan is a strategy, though, right? We're going to talk about a plan for you in a minute. At the end of the day, it's your choice. What are you going to do about it? It's your choice. Not my choice. It's your choice. No one that lives in your house, it's not their choice. No one that you work for, not their choice. It's not your former colleagues. It's not your direct reports. Okay. It's all about you. It's your choice. So who are you going to call? You're going to write a note to someone, right? You're going to send an email to someone. You just have to do something at the end of the day. So you can't control the change that happened to you, but you can control the meaning that you give that. And what does that mean? So when chaos visits, and it will, everyone, I promise you, it's going to happen in your lifetime, whether it's personal or whether it's professional. So when chaos visits, being unprepared is what causes panic, fear, anger, shock, and it creates total mayhem in your life at the end of the day. And if you know that chaos is going to be a visitor that's going to be visiting you in your career, you know what happens when you're prepared for that? Well, your perspective is going to change. And actually, a changed perspective is the most beautiful thing in the world. And you won't have to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't have to be paranoid, but you will be planful. And you will have an emergency plan. So remember, I read it all the time, have 3 months money saved for an emergency fund to pay your bills in case something like this happens, right? And I can't see you and I can't hear you. And I'm going to ask the question, like, how many people actually have that done, right? I want to hear that whoosh of all the hands going up and saying, I do, right? Yeah, because the majority of people do not. Because again, they always think that this doesn't happen to them or it can't happen to them. So at the end of the day, not only do I bet you're going to think about this in the future, but you're going to be giving this advice to someone else. So again, this moment is showing you new opportunities. This is the moment that you did not ask for, but this is a moment at the end of the day that you can actually switch your perspective to this, that you can't change what happened, but you can change from feeling empty to feeling grateful that you were actually listening to a webinar or are you looking at outside resources? That's really, really key. And again, if you can't imagine what you want to do next, or if you can imagine that, what would you do next at the end of the day, right? So what I did when my job went away, I didn't know what to do. There were no resources. I was shocked. The rug was pulled out from underneath me and I fell flat. All right. Not a good look for me. But at the end of the day, this is what I did. I somehow wound up in my mentor's office. I was going for my master's degree. I was about halfway done, working full time, going for my master's. And I went over and I told her what happened. And she just turned and she was on her computer and I didn't interrupt her. I didn't know what was going on. So she said to me, Kim, and it was around this time of the year, end of the year, when this happened to me. She said, if you go full time, spring, summer, and fall, you could be finished your master's degree. So she was looking up, I guess she was looking at what courses I had left and what courses were going to be offered. And she actually put this whole thing together for me. And she showed me that, again, I didn't need the whole plan, but I needed my next steps. And she gave me my next steps. And I fought her tooth and nail. And I'm like, yep. I'm not going to do that. I'm thinking to myself, no way am I doing that. I've always worked. I've worked since I was 14 years old. I'm not stopping work in order to do that. But I did. And it changed everything. It changed my life 100% completely. But remember, I also was probably like some of you. I didn't have revenue coming in, right? Because our jobs went away and it was good revenue too, right? At the end of the day. But again, when we release fault, we actually own the path ahead. And I kind of went kicking and screaming, but that is what was, that's what catapulted me, if you will, into where I am today. So I want to share that story because, again, I'm just like all of you. So this has nothing to do, again, when we're releasing fault, when we're looking at the path ahead, it doesn't have anything to do with you personally, that you may not be here. I mean, sometimes these major organization restructurings, they're not thinking of you. I love you, but I don't want to say you're not important. But you know what? You may not have been that person on the table saying, like, we can't do this because of that particular individual. So you know what? Stop taking it personally, because it really had nothing to do with you. It just makes you feel so helpless, right? And it has nothing to do with blame. It's about shock and uncertainty. And that's not a good look for anyone. And you get to choose your own next steps. No one else, right? So again, you can talk about mastering some more productive mindsets. And that would be something like, you can't control the timing of the layoff, but you can control your daily actions. So just master your next step, not the whole path. I think that's really, we're talking in the beginning about the small steps. That's how you're chipping away at that. So change your catastrophic story. What are you telling other people, right? What are you telling yourself right now? Is it based out of fear or is it fact? And that's really important, that differentiation. So if your best friend were experiencing this, what would you tell them? What would you tell them about what you know or what you feel right now? What advice would you give them? And if that advice is spot on for them, why aren't you listening to that advice yourself? You can come pay me. I'm not cheap. Okay. I will tell you right now, I'm worth it, but I will tell you right now, there's some things that folks can do on their own before they get to a point of going to an executive coach. So you can feel free to do that. But if you just pause and listen to this webinar, it's going to be giving you a lot of the advice that I would be giving you behind closed doors, although I'd be holding you accountable to that. That would be one of the bigger differences. So create a forward focused story, that mind shift versus, here's where I've been. Here's what I'm great at, right? At the end of the day, here's where I'm headed next. Because again, confidence grows when people own their own narrative. And reframing means changing the lens, not the facts. You can change your lens. That's what's going to help you. Shifting from, why is this happening to me? Or what possibilities or what opportunities are in front of me right now? And reframing doesn't also mean that pretending that everything is fine. Everything's not fine. Everything is not fine. But you can cocoon in your bed with the covers over your head, right? You can do that. Or you can take action. It means choosing a perspective that helps you move forward versus staying stuck. You don't want to stay stuck. That's the biggest thing. All right. So the moment that you realize is that the power lives in your control, in your choices, not in the circumstances. The circumstances may have been just a situation that happened to you. It is not your life. So you can't control the circumstances, but you can control the meaning that you give it. And that's really important. So that small release of tension. Are any of you holding or clenching your fists, or do you do that during the day? When you think about like what happened, oh my gosh, I'm in this situation right now and I really wish I weren't. Do you know what happens when you're clenching fists like that? You know what you're clenching? Air. Air. That's what you're clenching. So again, we're reframing right now. We're looking at what we're doing. We're trying to change some of those habits right now that are not serving you. So again, replacing some panic with curiosity, just feeling a little bit more open to possibility. Or you can pay, again, an expensive therapist. Go do that. If that makes you feel good, go do that. All right. But some of this you can actually kickstart yourself, which is really important. And you can do that by by starting to question some of the long held assumptions that you have based on that rearview mirror, right? When you're catching yourself doing that, is this the only way to see yourself, by what's back there? You can do that. Absolutely. But why would you? Right? If I were your executive coach, I would help you stop doing that. So reframing yourself often feels subtle. It's not dramatic. It's not always an aha moment, but it is a shift. Okay. Your life has shifted, and it doesn't mean that it's bad. So instead of saying something like, I'm seeing that my hair, you know what? I'm pausing. You know why? Because my hair, I got to get my hair straight. Okay. Okay. See, right? That's important to me. And you know what? I know you still love me. No worries. Anyway, at the end of the day, when you're thinking that everything fell apart, you can think that, or you can actually think about that. What matters most is going forward. I did that. I just went on for my master's degree. Eventually I went on for my doctorate degree, right? That would have never happened if I didn't finish my master's degree. So when thinking that, my role was my identity, oh my gosh, we're going to pause right now. Okay. No one likes going to a cemetery, but sometimes we go, right? And if you're ever driving through that and you look around, you're always going to see what the person's name and the year they were born and the year that they passed away. I have never seen anyone's resume or their title, right, on their tombstone. Never. That doesn't follow you. So if you're identifying yourself only through your job title, therein lies the problem. And again, you're opening your door to see yourself bigger than your job title. So when you are reframing yourself that you don't need the whole plan, what is your next step? You're giving yourself permission to breathe, not perform. Hey, sometimes, you know what? If your job ends for any reason or transition, maybe that's time to stop and take a breath, because you don't have to perform anymore. And that actually can be a good thing. All right. So again, when you're looking at catching yourself that you're never going to recover from this, I promise you that you will recover from this. Okay. And reframing looks like this: when you pause and ask yourself things like, when have I actually handled uncertainty before, or what helped me through this? Or again, what advice would you give a friend? Because when you reframe it, you're drawing your strength you're drawing on strengths instead of fears. So that being said, remember that in life, it's not what you do. It's not what happens to you. I'm sorry. I'm distracted. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do about it. Yep. That's it right there. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do about it. So the third part of what we're going to be talking about is rebuilding and renewing, resigning yourself, re-emerging. And what I love is reinventing. Love that, right? This is what we're going to do, because small steps really become big changes. And reinvention rarely starts with a big leap. And let me give you an example of that. I'm a 2-time author. Okay. Almost never does a writer or an author sit down and say, type in chapter 1 and then and that it flows. It doesn't happen that way. All right. It just doesn't. It does in the movies, but in real life, it doesn't happen that way. So it starts with the tiny experiments that you are doing right now in your life, like a course or a conversation or a project, and each one revealing what really fits best for you and expanding your possibilities, but not your resume. Okay. You're working on your resume. I get that, but you have to expand your own possibilities, because uncertainty, that's actually the place of reinvention. It was for me. Oh man, I was so uncertain about I was so fearful. And that's a pivot point. Like, what opportunities does it open? Yeah. I mean, did my master's degree open opportunities? Yeah, it did. But the opportunities kept getting bigger because I kept going back to school. At the end of the day, why don't you give yourself permission to imagine more than one future, right? Are you going from just like finding another job like the last one you had? Why don't you try, I don't know, maybe expanding or broadening your horizon at this point? Maybe this is the time to do that. No one, except for the people like my parents and that generation, you start with a company and you end, 40, 30 years, 45 years, and with the same company, right? With the pension and a gold watch, right? It's almost like scribble art where everyone starts and oh my gosh, they're all over the place. And where they are now, it's completely different. And I will say something that a friend of mine said years ago: you never, ever waste education. Never. Some people wind up with a degree that they don't use, but it doesn't mean that it's a waste. So when I hear people say like, oh, I went to school to be an accountant, right? I got a degree into being an accountant. And I remember this great story about this young man, a lawyer. He's down in DC somewhere. When I go down there, I'm going to look up, he's a baker. He's adorable. He's a baker, right? So do you think that his education was wasted? I don't at all. And I will not say that that's correct. So let's look at a 30-day momentum plan for you. At the end of the day, develop a new skill. Oh my gosh. How many times have you read that? How many times do people tell you that? Ugh. If I hear one more person say, you know what, develop a new skill. Well, I'm not going to be conventional about the two things I'm going to suggest to you. All right. I'm not a conventional person. So at the end of the day, I'm going to, of course, always read books and listen to books if you're audio. It's going to be giving you a different perspective. You can be doing that also when you're outside walking or when you're inside exercising. Right. So you're doing two things at once, but that can be beneficial. I'm not saying that. All right. So the first thing I'm going to suggest to you is cook full meals. All right. I don't want you to do that if you've never cooked before and you don't know how to use a stove and you don't know that when you put a pan on, you put oil in it and you turn it up to high, that you're going to burn the kitchen down. All right. So here's the disclaimer right now. So the point I'm making is a full meal for you could be a sandwich. Okay. So again, unless you know how to work kitchen appliances, do not do that. But have you ever made a sandwich? Have you ever gone to the deli to pick out like really good bread, really good sandwich meat? If you don't eat meat, I don't know, some other things that you put on a sandwich, like really good bread though. Okay. And get a dinner plate, right? And put your sandwich on that and then put other great things on the plate, whether it's, I don't know, homemade chips. Oh my gosh, please, no letters about that's unhealthy. You know what? Sometimes we need a chip, right? And you can't eat one, but you can actually put something on your plate, whether it's a salad, whether it's something that you buy from the deli, right? Or some fruit, some cut up fruit, but on a dinner plate. So it's big and it's pretty, because you know what you're doing. Or if you're following a recipe, you know how to cook, but if you're following a recipe, this is what happens. Okay. First of all, it's taking you into another room in your house. You're not going to be sitting at the same desk or looking at the same thing. You're going to be moving. You're going to be standing on your feet, which is always healthy, right? Put on some music too. Really big. I can send you my playlist. Oh my God. I used to be a dancer. Anyway. All right. So at the end of the day, so cool. You're focused on not burning food. If you're the person that's going to try that, okay, keep your heat down low. Keep your heat down low. Okay. Do not leave the room ever with the heat on, the stove on. And make sure that if you're putting anything in the microwave for 2 minutes, that you don't hit 20 minutes. Okay. Because you will burn your house down. And I'm not being held accountable for that. But the point is, again, we're all adults. We need to adult well, especially in a kitchen. But you're following a recipe that gets your mind. That is such a great distraction. It's a creative distraction for you. And then you've created something in the end. You have that new meal. That's a sandwich, right? Or you have that new meal that you've never prepared that recipe before. So again, go into the kitchen. No utensils have to be used, but no heat has to be used. All right. At the end of the day, but create something for yourself. I promise you, you're going to feel better afterwards because you're getting the heck out of the space. You're in bed right now. Get out of bed. Get out of bed. All right. Go into the kitchen and make something to eat. All right. The second thing I highly recommend, always read the books on learning a new skill. You know what? I'm all about distraction. I'm all about taking a break because I know I'm going to be going back to those other things. Comedy. Absolutely. So comedy teaches you how to reframe your experiences. And comedians, have you ever watched a comedian, or have you ever or even go online and watch a comedian talk about how they build their set? So for comedians, they turn pain into stories and stories into connections. That's the ultimate reframing. skill to do that. Um, I I'm not paid by this comedian, Sebastian Maniscalco. However, he's hilarious. I've watched repeatedly all of his sets. He's on Netflix. Seen him in person, fabulous. Clean for the most part, but you know what he does? He's a person, he's Italian, grew up outside of Chicago, and his family, they're all from Italy, and many of them don't even speak English. So he talks about his experiences growing up. He's hilarious. Okay. I've not yet met one person who doesn't like him, but I will tell you, comedy, again, it's a great distraction. I actually have worked with people, even sales representatives. I'm plugging sales reps now. I worked with people. I'm like, your training is a little bit different than everyone else's because you know what? They were comedians. They know how to relate with people. They know how to read a room, right? So, cooking and comedy. What are you talking about, Kim? Try it. Call me if it doesn't work out. Okay. I promise you, you're going to be getting something out of it. So, at the end of the day, you're not powerless, right? So, you have to stop thinking in terms of that you actually have opportunities to look at the same thing differently. And cooking is going to help you with that, doing something different. Making meaningful conversations with other people. Have you reached out to a former colleague? Hey, I went to my university. What? She's not a priest. She's not a therapist. She's smart though. And she helped me. Can you send notes that say thinking of you or let's catch up, or ask someone to make a connection or an introduction for you? So also your small experiments, like when you reach out to people, try reaching out between 8 and 9 before they really get their day started. Or you're not doing that because you're asleep. All right, set your alarm. Just set your alarm. Okay. Or you can wear PJs, right? If it's on a Zoom call, please. We don't want to shock anyone. Or send notes. Okay. So someone who I admire deeply, I got them to start writing notes. And again, they were like, yeah, not doing that, hated it, made them anxious. And the whole list goes on. And you know what they do all the time now? They write notes. You know why? Notes are great. I send notes for everything. I write notes. I do. And I will tell you that who's ever received a note and it doesn't make them smile at the end of the day? I think it's really important that we look at what people get when they receive a handwritten note, because again, it's part of our DNA, right? It's the time, it's the effort, it's kindness at the end of the day. So you can do that, or send instant messages on social media, right? People do it on LinkedIn all the time, or on whatever social media that you're on. So create that new story for yourself. I think it's really important that you stop introducing yourself by your old identity. Here's the best story ever, my favorite story ever. Okay. I read that it was this vice president or SVP executive. His job went away. And the story was really touching because, again, when you're at that level, it was harder for him to find a job to pay what he was making before. And it was just really tough. But what he did was he somehow started substitute teaching at, I don't know, it was like a all boys school down the road from him. And he found out that he loved that. And it just changed his fiber, if you will. It was the love and the passion that he wanted in his career. And he used to always say, when people said, "What do you do?" And he would always say, "Well, I was a vice president, but now I'm just only teaching in the meantime until I can find another senior executive job." He would always give this like long explanation until finally he said, "I'm a teacher." Right? It's amazing. I love that. Start speaking to your strengths and your aspirations that, again, well, you know what? Now I'm going to look into, what is it you're going to be looking into? Put your stake in the ground and claim that. Do something. Action creates momentum. All right. Get out of bed. Get out of bed. At the end of the day, if you're going to an interview or if you're going to meet with someone, a connection, get out of bed, take a shower, please take a shower, get in the car, have a destination. When you get there, park the car, but get out of the car. Don't sit. Immediately get out of the car, walk into the building, and smile. Smile. Okay? That's the exercise I would give a lot of my clients, because that's actually going to be changing for you, and it's good for you to get out of the house. So release perfection and build momentum. So first of all, again, the goal is not perfection at all. It's momentum, right? We want to keep that momentum going and stop waiting for permission. Stop waiting for permission. Do you need someone to tell you to get out of bed? I'm giving you permission, and I'm not going to charge you for that, right? What is it that you need? Do you need something in writing? Tell me. I'll write you a note. Get out of bed. Do something, because you can do something. It's your choice not to do something. So I'll help you make that choice. So when we're talking about trying and failing and learning and adjusting, oh my gosh, everyone, that has been the story of my life, the story of my career. Being in medical sales, again, my jobs were always going away because we were always being acquired, right? And it took me a while to get smart about how to be prepared for something like that. I wasn't paranoid, but you know what? Panic was not my strategy anymore. If it doesn't work, try something new. All right. So, all of my advice is something that you should be implementing, but I'm going to give you a story. Like, not few, but years ago, I never went on LinkedIn. I just had no interest. Like one more social media, I'm not doing it. But I had finished my master's degree, and my husband kept saying, please build a profile on LinkedIn. And I just, being a wife, I would always ignore him. And he's wonderful. But one day I did. And you're not going to believe this. This is so true. But what happened was, I promise you, this is so true. Girl Scouts honor. Within 30 minutes, someone reached out to me. And that is the job that got me to where I am today. 30 minutes. Okay. Don't get stuck doing things right. You know what? If something doesn't feel right, then don't do it. You know what? If you don't want to write a note, don't do it. Try it though. All right. Try it. But if that's something that's going to stop you, then don't do it. You don't have to do every single thing. But this is where your strength starts right here. Accepting uncertainty and chaos. Make your life chaos proof. Just be prepared, right? You just want to make sure that, you know what, if you are looking at 2 jobs and one is so unstable, but you really like it, but it's so unstable, and the other one, you like it, right? I would say take the one that you like, because the other one's going to go away. And then you're going to have to watch my webinar all over again. And I love that for you. But you know what? Life is short. Like, you don't want to be watching me twice. All right. I really hope that you do, but you may not want to. All right. So at the end of the day, set the place setting at your table tonight for chaos, and tell your wife that, or your partner, or your husband, or whoever your favorite person in the world. Tell them to do that too. It's going to be a mind shift. It's going to be life-changing for you. Look for the positive breadcrumbs, right? At the end of the day, looking for the small signs of progress. I'm going to tell you what that looks like. You know what? Let me find mine. Everyone talks about doing this stuff, and I don't do it, right? Until I do. So I'm now my own message. So I heard someone say something about start a win journal, WIN. And I started doing that, right? Here it is, right? I'm looking at this. I'm trying to get this. Okay. I really love the cover too, because I love pink. But actually what I do, and it's not a calendar inside, it's just pages, and I just put the date, and I put my one win for the day. My win could be that I was having a good hair day. I don't know. My win could be something really good. It could be so small, right? It could be, here's one. Okay. I love bright colors. So like I went out and bought like a whole bunch of these. Okay. And I have them in like neon pink and blue. Love it. But that made me happy. And that's a win. You know why? Because I use them now. And I've got like about a stack of those in my desk drawer. The Post-it notes that are all yellow. Yeah, no, that's not for me. I have to have bright colors. But that's a win for me. Or if I talked with someone, right, that I haven't talked to in a long time, right? Or someone that I miss, and I do miss people so much, right? Well, I'll write to them or leave them a note, and they're always happy to hear from me. So that's a win at the end of the day. And I got that from my pharmaceutical days. But you know what? What happens is when you write down one good thing that happens every day, one. That's 5 good things a week. That's 20 good things a year. Well, actually, it's more than that. I'm only doing business days, right? So it's more than 20. Okay. It's almost 30 good things that happen a month times how many good things happen a year. So it's over 240 good things a year, right? Hey, if I can have a colorful win journal, you can do the same thing. Network constantly, not only when you need something. And people are like, oh my gosh, I have to network for a job now. Like, who do I call? Yeah, well, you know what? Networking, go on your LinkedIn profile and look at all the people that you're connected with. There's a start right there at the end of the day. And you don't have to reach out and say, you know what? I don't know how to tell you this, but I don't have a job. Okay. Because some people don't want to talk about those things. And you're just, I'm at a point, I'm in a transition right now, and I'm asking you for your advice. Ask them for their advice. People love to tell, and people love to teach at the end of the day. Also, pay it forward when you land for others. You know what? Helping others is so important. That's why I have my podcast, the Fabulous Women Podcast Studio. I'm actually plugging that, and I'll tell you why, because I love women. I love supporting women, right? I love everyone. But but I like to support women and I like to promote women. And my platform is my contribution. And I'm always paying it forward, right? I ask everyone, please pay it forward. Well, I'm doing that myself, right? You all have to be your own message. So, and also build your support ecosystem. So don't try to navigate all this alone. We're all in this together, and people really can be kind, and reach out not just for favors, but for connection and for clarity. At the end of the day, right? Our when we are isolating ourselves, what we're doing is that we're amplifying uncertainty. And who wants to do that? No one. No one wants to do that. So what that's doing for us is it allows our connections, right? That helps to stabilize that. So we're coming to the conclusion now of this webinar. Just remember, my friends, that in life, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. That I promise you. Okay. So a few things I want to leave with you before I end. It's this. It's okay to have a day for yourself, or a morning for yourself, or an afternoon for yourself, or an hour for yourself. It's okay to do that. It's okay to laugh again. You should laugh again. Okay. Watch comedy. What you all probably have a phone or a television, and you probably have something, YouTube. You can watch some comedians, right? That's going to help you at the end of the day. I promise that's going to help you. Don't burn your house down if you don't know how to cook. Go make a sandwich if you have to. It's okay to even resume exercising. All right. Go out to your mailbox if you have to. Get some steps in at the end of the day. And ultimately, it's okay to resume life. I promise you that it's going to be okay. Your future might feel different. That does not mean that it's going to feel bad. It actually might be the best thing that ever happened to you. I am a walking example of what happened to you going through transitions. And you know what? I just had so many opportunities, but I looked for the opportunities, but I took advantage of them. And that's why I'm where I am today. So remember, in life, whenever you're navigating any kind of uncertainty or change, don't be afraid. Be prepared. That is something that you always have to remember, because when you're prepared, you win every single time. So if you want to reach out to me, if there's anything that you want to have me help you with, please look for me on my website, which is the Dr. Kim Approach. And my email address is drkim@thedrkimapproach.com. I wish you all the best of luck. Keep your chin up. You're going to be fine. Thank you.